Oliver Jackson, thanks so much for joining the series with Soho. Great to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, let's talk value add properties. I know you buy a lot of properties. Obviously, you're a buyer's agent, but tell me a little bit more about value add properties and what are you looking for when you buy a value add property?
Yeah, mate. So value add's basically any property that you can add value to, through renovation, subdivision, sometimes knock it down, do a little bit of a development. The fundamentals don't really change. Like if you buy the wrong property, doing a renovation isn't going to make you money. You still need to buy a property, 80% of the heavy lifting is done with location. So you still have to find the right property in the right location. And then the cream on top of that is the ideal renovation. Not something you're going to overstretch yourself, but something you can add value through.
Gotcha. Let's just touch on renovations because that's kind of right up your alley. You've got a bit of a, building construction background. You've done a lot of renos before. What's some tips on renovations? Do you have some do's and don'ts about, a basic renovation? Is it like do the kitchen and not do the living room? But yeah, how does that kind of work?
So basically, if you've never done a reno, your first time, I'd highly suggest you hire a project manager or a company to do it for you and you kind of learn from them because you pay them at say 15% on top of your costs. I guarantee you're going to save that from stuffing things up. I did it all myself to start with. I made a lot of costly mistakes. But I guess that's the way I learned how to do it. So there's two sides to that story. Do as much as you can that you're safe and you're allowed to do if you want to get involved. Doing a budget is super important. Always be conservative. Most people blow their budget. It's very, very, very easy to go over with renos, especially when you're doing, say, like a 1960s, 1970s building. You don't know what's behind the walls. You pull something out and it could cost you 10 grand more than what you thought it was going to cost. But when you've got a project managing team on your side, they're using your money, so they're a lot more careful with it and they're obviously professional at it. So I like to do it myself, but if you're a bit cautious, I'd get someone else to do it for you. If you're going to do the bathroom, you have to do the kitchen. You may as well paint the whole house, redo the floors. I mean, you can get away with a 2-bedroom apartment reno for 20, 30 grand, really.
Gotcha.
Stuff's pretty cheap these days. If you just got to do your research and find the right materials. But definitely, I'd definitely do the whole place. Just don't just do one room because then it looks funny.
Yeah, and would you do the kitchen bathroom first? Like, let's say you had to chip away at it and you couldn't do it all in one hit, or do you advise to do it all in one hit, or would you do kitchen first and then a couple months later or 6 months later do the bathroom? I guess it more kind of comes down to a cash flow thing. But how would you approach that one?
I'd wait until I had the money to do the whole thing because the process is a bit of a pain in the ass. So you may as well, if you're pulling out a kitchen, you got to get bins. Bins aren't cheap if you can't fill it up because you haven't got enough from the one kitchen. Things like that. Like you got the process, you got the sparkies there, you got the plumbers there. You don't want to get them back and forth because they charge you every time they come. You're better off just doing it all at once, saving your money for an extra year if you have to. Borrow money, whatever you have to do to just do it all at once, whatever you think you're going to do. People go a bit over the top when they do a reno. You don't have to do much. A bathroom and kitchen isn't that expensive. And then you can just paint and do the floors. You don't have to knock down walls if you don't want to. Like, you don't have to go silly, but definitely do it all at the same time. Because when you do it once, you realize, that's the process. Yeah.
And let's just say it's an investment property. It's, $500,000 and they want to put some money into the renovation. You mentioned some figures before, about 30, 40 grand. Is there is there too much? Like if you went to 60, 70, is that not making it as efficient as if you would spend a 20 or a 30?
Yeah, they say around 10% is a good guide of what you pay for the property to put a reno in. You obviously don't want to over leverage yourself, but then if you're going to add bedrooms, an extra extension, then obviously you've got to not overcapitalize. So know your market that you're doing it with, but 10% is the good guide. You don't need to go that high, to be honest, but it just depends on the scope of your works. If you're pulling down load bearing walls, then you're talking, 15 grand just for steel, just to put some beams in. So you really got to know your market that you're doing the renovation in and the house you've got and what you can do there.
And what would be the average time that would take? Let's say it's a $30,000, $40,000 renovation or a 2-bedroom apartment. Are we talking months and months, or is it 4 to 5 weeks? How does that work?
Depends who your team is, how much you're doing yourself and how many mistakes you make. First one always blows out because you actually end up taking longer because you try and help the plumber or something and you do too much and he's like, what'd you do all that for? You don't have to do this much. There's an extra few days. You knock a wall down you weren't meant to. There's so many things you can do wrong. So mate, you can do a reno. I did a full 2-bedroom reno in 3 weeks, but you'd want to allow a couple of months for it. When like a full development, subdivision, build a house at the back, you can get that done in under 12 months in a lot of places. So it depends on your level of expertise and the company that you employ to help you do it.
Gotcha. And I guess just touching on subdivisions, is that more for your experienced investors? Like if you're a first-time investor and you're looking at a value-add property and it looks great and there's a potential for a subdivision, would you stay away from that one? Like how does the whole subdivision thing work? Is it more of a complex process to kind of go through?
Yes and no. Like if you're just going to do a simple subdivision and you can get the right property, you can land bank that property. So you can renovate the front one and then you've got the backyard you can cut off at some stage. You could do it in 5-10 years when you get the confidence or the money. It's not, a massive process. You hire other people to do it for you. You get your surveys, you get your town planners on board, and you get your builder to build it. You just got to make sure when you buy the property, you can actually subdivide it if that's what you want to do. Just because a place is 800 square meters doesn't mean that you can definitely subdivide it. So depending on your council, before you buy it, kind of make sure it's the right kind of property, but it's not that daunting. Like when you start building 15, 16 townhouses, then you're talking serious developments, but a simple subdivision isn't really that big of a deal. It's a great way to build your portfolio too. Yeah,
and I guess if it was a simple subdivision, like you've got a house with a bit of land at the back and you can actually subdivide that bit of land into a couple more, what's some kind of costing involved? Is it like thousands and thousands of dollars to kind of get that approved from council? And is it like take 12 months for that kind of approval just to kind of go through? How does that, time and cost factor into it without even adding on to the building side of it?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer because every single council, every state, everywhere is so different. Like a subdivision in say Adelaide costs you $25,000, where in Queensland it can cost you 70. Granny flat, you don't even need to subdivide. Like there's so many, like every state is so different and it's too hard to say. I mean, you can build a 3-bed house for $180,000 in some places. So, you can do a subdivision and a build for under $230,000 in some states, where others it might cost you $300,000. So you really got to know your market. As for time, in Melbourne, sometimes it'll take 18 months for an approval, where in Adelaide, 11 weeks we've had approvals done. So once again, it's really know your market, where you're doing it, before you go into it. Yep.
And I guess just touching on the market, what do you like at the moment? Seems to be a little bit of uncertainty, but there's definitely opportunities out there. Any, particular areas that you're kind of you're buying for your investors at the moment, or areas that you don't like?
Definitely stay away from CBDs, unless you're wanting to buy whole vacant buildings. Yep. We're looking at a lot of regional, a lot of sea change, tree change kind of areas, because people are realizing they don't need to leverage themselves and live in the city, because everyone knows now they can work from home. So why not live somewhere that's a little bit cheaper, a little bit nicer, more quiet life? So I'm not going to tell you where, but sea change, tree change kind of places. CBD, stay away. Stay far away.
And contact details if I'm a buyer and looking to engage with you as a buyer's agent, obviously help me purchase a property in one of these sea or tree change places. Contact details, how do I get in contact with you?
It's Oliver Jackson at Living Property on pretty much all social media. I'm fairly active. livingproperty.com.au and 04044 244
Oliver Jackson, thanks so much for joining the series with Soho, mate. Awesome.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It's good.
Thanks. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out more, visit sohoapp.com, or if you're looking at adding your properties into Soho and connecting your CRM, check out the links in the description below.